So just how good are these Triangle 40th Anniversary Magellan Duettos? I want to tell you guys all about these speakers. They might not have even been on your radar, but let's take a look at the specs first as I show you the design and the quality of the build of these speakers. So the Magellan 40th Anniversary Duettos from Triangle, they are a two-way speaker. They have two drivers. They have a mid-range and bass driver, as well as a horn-loaded tweeter. The sensitivity is 88 dB. The frequency range is 38 hertz to 30 kilohertz. So these go down pretty good in the bass. They recommend an amplifier power between 30 and 150 watts. The repetitive peak power is 160 watts. The dimensions are 9.9 by 13.7 by 18.1 inch. They weigh 37 pounds each, and the stands that are dedicated for these speakers is the S08 model. So these speakers right behind me have been in this room for the past 8, 9, 10 weeks. I'm not even sure how long. They've been in here a while. I've been listening to them with various amplifiers. And not so long ago, I reviewed the 40th Anniversary Cometes from Triangle. I think I'm saying that right. Maybe I'm not. And I really enjoyed them at the $2,500 price point. These, let me tell you a quick story about these. They came in, I unboxed them. I was told they were the top of the line flagship in the Triangle line in regards to a two-way bookshelf style speaker. This is the best two-way bookshelf speaker that Triangle makes today, and it's part of their 40th anniversary selection of speakers. The 40th Anniversary Duettos are beautiful. When I removed them from the box, I was stunned at the quality of these. Now, I've had a lot of speakers in here over the last few years, and these rank among the top in regards to construction quality, beauty, and speaker terminal on the back where you plug in your cables. That is the highest quality I've seen yet in a speaker through these doors, regardless of cost. So the construction quality of these is outstanding. The beautiful Zebrano pattern here. I love the way that the black kind of fades out as it goes to the back of the speaker, and it's like a blackout as you get to the back. These are absolutely gorgeous speakers in the flesh, and I also asked Triangle if they could send me the S08 stands that are made for these speakers, and they are quite a stunning combination in the looks department. They have a high, in my opinion, wife approval or wife acceptance factor, meaning I bet that some of you who have wives who like things to look good, they're going to love these speakers just because of the looks. So once I got that out of my system and said, wow, these are some really great speakers in regards to build, quality of parts, and style, I started to listen to them. And these were brand new out of the box, so I let them burn in for a good 100 hours before I really started to judge them. A lot of people believe in burn-in. Some people don't believe in burn-in. I believe in a little bit of burn-in. I believe it takes a speaker maybe 10, 20 hours at most to open up. You know, I could be wrong, but I let it burn in for 100 just to be sure. Out of the box, they did sound a little stiff and a little dry, but after I'd say a good few hours of running them in, they started to blossom and open up. And there's one thing, there's two things, maybe there's three things that these speakers do that is very, very special. And as you guys know, I like to review things that I find that I think are very special. I'm just like you. I'm an audio nut. I'm a guy who likes to hear new gear. I always want to experience new things when it comes to hi-fi. So I get to experience here, and I'm just letting you know my experience. If something doesn't give me a bam, home run, grand slam experience, I don't review it. So these speakers gave me that experience. First special thing that the 40th Anniversary Duettos do is in the treble. Now, this is a newly designed treble for the 40th anniversary, and it is superb. Now, this is a horn-loaded tweeter, but forget what you know about horn-loaded tweeters. Some horn-loaded tweeters can sound bitey, harsh and a little aggressive. Some of them can sound metallic. The tweeter in the 40th Duettos is one of the finest I've heard, and in my opinion, even surpasses those Borison X1s that I recently reviewed. I love the tweeter here because it's smooth, it's silky, it's very extended, and it's great off axis due to the way they design the speaker. Meaning, if I set up these speakers for a sweet spot and I'm sitting right in that spot to get the maximum sound stage and imaging, a lot of speakers you have to sit in that exact spot to really get that effect. With these, they have a really great off-axis response. So when my wife Debbie sits back here with me, I let her sit in the middle and I sit off to the side, and it's still 98% as good as sitting in the middle. So you're not going to have sound that sounds weird if you have a guest in the room off to the side. Now, this is for people who set up their speakers for critical listening, and that's when you can get that sound stage, that airiness, the three-dimensionality that so many of us have experienced and talk about. So that's how I set up my room. And in that regard, these speakers are phenomenal. That tweeter is just amazing. They have a clear, wide open sound. And these are more about a clarity, bringing you every detail in the music. These are the first speakers I've had in here, I'll say this, where I've heard a sound that I never heard before in a song. Now, I was playing on Tidal, and I used the RS-130 streamer from HiFi Rose. So I played a song from Depeche Mode called My Favorite Stranger. It's off their latest album. And this was the video version of it where they sang it in a, it's not the recording off the album, but they did it in a studio or of some sort. I'm not sure, but it sounds really good. And there's a part in the song where I never heard before, a background vocal that's very subdued in the back and haunting from Martin Gore. And this is the first time I heard it. Not that I maybe haven't heard it subconsciously before, but it's the first time it was brought out in that mix with these 40th Duettos. It was absolutely chill-inducing. I had goosebumps on my body at the time of hearing this. The bass driver, the mid driver here is fantastic, and it has a suppleness. It has a way of bringing the tightest, some of the tightest bass I've heard. I've heard many a great speaker that had tight, tuneful bass, but these have more of it, right? I don't need a subwoofer with these, especially when pairing it with a certain amp that I'll tell you about here in a minute. Now, when I ran these with the Yamaha AS3200 integrated amp, which is the flagship from Yamaha in their integrated line, the sound was very punchy, beefy, a little warm. The Yamaha kind of subdued some of those details, and they sounded extremely musical with a big, tight bass and some nice meat in the mids. And the Yamaha toned down that treble a little bit to make it even smoother. It was a very pleasing listen. I loved that combo. I then tried the Burson Voyager, which is a preamp, Class A preamp, along with a beautiful headphone amp. It's really a headphone amp and a preamp secondary, but it's an amazing preamp, and it's full Class A. And hooking that up to the Galleon TSA 75, the speakers had more of an electricity about them. They were very detailed, very open, very transparent. The bass was not as plump in the mids as with the Yamaha, but that Galleon can dig deep down in the depths of the bass, but the mid bass is cleaner with the Galleon. I enjoyed that presentation as well. I then hooked up a Passlabs XP10 preamp, which is one of my favorite preamps, even though it's an older model. And then I hooked up some monoblocks from AGD. So I have two sets of monoblocks here from AGD. Some of the finest, if not the finest, dedicated amplifiers I've ever heard. Now, these amps from AGD are not in the special category. I put them in the very special category. When I hooked up these amps with the Passlabs XP10, and I'll just say first, I have the Duets from AGD, which are absolutely gorgeous and simple and light, and they run cool, and the sound is like nothing I've heard. Then I have the Audion Mark IIIs, which use that big tube, which is not really being used as a tube in the traditional sense, but the actual GaNFET Class D module is in that tube. And the genius of these amps is you can upgrade later when there's a new version. You buy the new tube and you put it in and you have the all new amp. Pretty cool. But when I hooked up these amps to the triangles with the PassLabs XP10, there was just magic oozing out of these speakers. I mean, magic that I haven't heard before of this type. These amps are very special. It allowed the triangles to really open up, but the bottom end, the bass, was spectacular. The first time I heard bass like that from these speakers, and it told me, you do not need any bass reinforcement in this room. Now my room is 13 by 18, and Triangle recommends the 40th Duettos for small to mid-size rooms. And I'd say this is a mid-size room. It's not huge, but it's not tiny, but it's almost perfect for these speakers. So 13 by 18, it's really doing wonders for the 40th Duettos, especially with those AGD amps. So I brought my wife Debbie in last night when I had the Audion Mark IIIs hooked up, which are probably my favorite of the two AGD amps right now. That might change in a month or two. But these amps have a way of bringing out some set-like single-ended triode amp warmth and transparency in the mid-range. There's that suppleness I talked of earlier, that beautiful way the bass is presented with these amps. I can't even describe it. It's impossible to describe. The treble is just so extended, yet it's not aggressive or hard. It doesn't sound strident ever. It just has this way, the complete package of filling in any holes in the music, right? And you got that amazing detail retrieval. That treble, which is probably the finest I've heard. The treble in these 40th Duettos, I put above the Borison X1s. I put it above the Focal Diablos. I put it above the Daniel Hertz Ambers and Avas. These speakers are phenomenal, and I think that a lot of people kind of don't think about this speaker because a lot of people tell me, oh, I heard Triangle is bright and forward. Well, take out the word bright because they're not bright at all. They have a full spectrum of sound from top to bottom. The bass is incredible, especially with those AGD amps, and the treble is very extended but very smooth. And again, it creates one of those sound stages that you can walk into and still hear the imaging. It's pretty incredible when that happens. So living with these speakers, after I'd say I was 2 weeks in with the speakers, I emailed Triangle and I said, Frank Gaza is the guy at Triangle. I said, Frank, I want to buy these speakers because they are absolutely drop dead phenomenal. Some of the finest I've heard in a two-way design. And you guys know I love two-way speakers. They have the ability to easily disappear in a room. And not only do these sound phenomenal, but they look phenomenal. The quality is on a top level. And I don't always see that. It's hard to see a quality of this level in a speaker of this price point. Now, the speaker comes in at $7,000. But remember, it's the top-end flagship of the two-way lineup from Triangle. So again, these are not bright in any way, but they are a little forward. And that's the Triangle sound signature. They're a little forward. And for those of you who like, say, the presentation where your vocals are coming out dead center, but they come out a little bit into the room, sometimes I hear instruments jet out and pop out in space from one side. So there's a song called Skin from Sade. Is it Sade or Sade? I never learned how to say her name correctly. But I was listening to a live album she did, and the song Skin came on. And there was a part where the guitar kicks in, and I just heard it in three-dimensional space pop out from the rest of the mix. So some of these instruments come forward, and it is remarkable when that happens. It just gives me a goosebump and a jolt. And I'm like, wow, but yet all along, you got the bass rhythm moving you, right? I don't know how many times I've bought a set of speakers in life only to be disappointed and selling them at a loss. These are speakers here that are indeed, and I will classify them. If I had a rubber stamp, I'd stamp it right here. These are endgame speakers. If you're the type of person who allows endgame things to happen. That's not really me. As for me, I always am trying new things because new things are being sent to me. So when I like something better than what I've had before, and I can swing it in a way without losing, I'm able to jump to the product I like better. But if I was a normal dude just living at home, I wouldn't be going through all of this audio gear. But since I talk about it on YouTube, that's part of what I do here. It's now my job, it seems like, to just go through audio gear and tell you guys about it. But these are staying for a while. They're going in with the Augie and Bobs as some of my favorite speakers of all time, and they are absolutely some of my favorite speakers of all time. If I compare them to old favorites, say the Sonus Faber Guarneri series. Now, in the past, I've owned every version of the Guarneri from the first to the fourth. They were one of my favorite two-way speakers ever, even today. And I put these equal. My love for these are as equal as those Sonus Fabers, but it's a different presentation. Sonus Fabers are known for being more warm and romantic, where the triangles are more forward and wide open, but they're stunning because they have a little warmth in the mid-range if you power them right. Other speakers I liked. The Focal Diablos were very, very beautiful speakers. I really needed a couple of subs to run with those to fill out that bass that they kind of lack in. But I gotta say, I prefer these to the Focal Diablos. I never did a proper video review of the Diablos because by the time it got around to that, I was like, I don't know, the bass here seems a little low. You have to run them with subwoofers. They're 24,000 bucks. These are 7 and I like them better and I don't need subwoofers with them. No offense to Focal owners, but you really gotta love that Focal Beryllium tweeter, which many people love. It's one of the most revealing tweeters made. So if you like that, check out Focal. What other speakers have I had in here? The Daniel Hertz Amber and Avas. Now the Avas were bookshelves that blew me away for their small size and their bass power and the purity in the mid-range. They were some phenomenal speakers, but when I reviewed them, they were $3,000 and I was like, these are a no-brainer home run. And right after the review, Daniel Hertz raised them, doubled them or more. And I was like, no, they're not worth that much to me. I don't know why they raised the price right after the review. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit because I reviewed them at one price and then they skyrocketed after the review. So I like these better than the Daniel Hertz Avas in sound, in looks, and in build. The Triangle 40th Duettos have great imaging, but it's not surgical. It's not cut out. Pinpoint is what we call it. It's more of an organic imaging where you can tell where the artists are on stage, but those lines may be a little blurred, right? But it's still an organic experience. It's more of a real experience than that hyper hi-fi experience. Now, amplification, these probably prefer an amp that has some power to it, even though they're not hard to drive. You do want an amp that has some power, maybe 100 watts per channel or a little more, even up to 300 watts per channel. I found that up to 100 watts and over, these were really bringing out the bass and the clarity and that suppleness in the mid-range that this mid-driver does so well. It has a nice, beautiful vocal range, meaning when the vocals come out, they are so realistic. It's kind of like on the borderline between being too full and being too lean. It's perfect, right in the middle. So this allows you to hear the details in the voices, and they're very three-dimensional. So my all-out favorite combo with these speakers was the AGD Audion Mark IIIs. These are very, very special amplifiers that I suggest you guys take a look at if you're in the market for an amplifier. You need a preamp with these. But they are remarkable in so many ways. I will be reviewing them here soon after I listen to them for some time. I also have the Duets from AGD, which power these in a remarkable way. The Duets have a little more speed and kick, right? They're a little more dynamic, but the Audions touch my heart and soul more. They bring that emotion out more, but it depends on what you like. They're both amazing amplifiers, among the best dedicated amplifiers I've heard. And they sound remarkable with the 40th Anniversary Duetto. So all in all, the Triangle 40th Anniversary Magellan Duettos are absolute knockouts. If you're in the market for a two-way speaker, now these are a lot bigger than most two-ways, but they're still a two-way bookshelf style speaker. If you're in the market for that and you want some of the best you can get, I highly recommend an audition of these speakers, the 40th Anniversary Duettos. They are in the top 3 of all time that I've heard, I'd say. I bought these and I sold a couple of my other speakers to fund it because they are truly that good. They do almost everything right, and I can't think of anything that they do wrong. Maybe the only negative that I found is there were some, I can't even remember what they were, but I have some old 80s recordings, and we all know 80s recordings, at least I think so, are among the worst recordings made as far as quality goes. The 80s wasn't very good when it came to producing music with amazing sound quality. A lot of them are thin, overly compressed, and they just don't sound that good. So if you run something like that through these speakers, which are revealing and open, they're going to sound a little weak in the mid bass. But most modern music today, most music recorded has a nice quality, and I have streamed Spotify through these. I've streamed Tidal, I've streamed Qobuz, I've played vinyl, and it all sounds absolutely fantastic. So $7,000 if that's within your budget and these look good to you, try to audition them if you can. They're remarkable. So coming soon, I will have reviews of those AGD monoblocks. I also have some other speakers coming in for review. And next up, I will be reviewing the Borison X2s, which are the bigger brother to the X1s. And how did those do in this room versus the X1s, and maybe even versus these triangles? I'll have that review up hopefully within a few days. And so much more to come. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you. If you like it, thumbs up. That really helps the video. Subscribe. That helps. And leave a comment below. That helps as well. So I will see you guys in the next one. I love you all, and I thank you all.